All right, everybody. It's Final Four weekend. Let's go. John Ryan is here. Welcome, everybody, to I Got Next. I am Chad, and you see our man, John Ryan, here. John, thank you for coming on. You've been breaking this stuff down. I've been seeing your videos on the timeline about what you see coming. I hear you like Villanova a good bit, but I want to get into all this stuff. I don't want to give away all the sauce because I know you gotta make your money and everything, but I want to give you an opportunity to kind of preview what we think may be coming down the pike this weekend. So how you feeling about this Final Four? Oh, you're muted. Hang on just a second. I'm not hearing you. Uh-oh. All right, let's see if we can figure out what's up with John's audio. Check and see if your mic settings are saying, because I heard you fine right before we came on. I don't know what happened. Well, anyway, I'll tell you guys what I think. I think that my tinfoil Kufi take, while we wait for John to get his microphone set up correctly, I'm gonna throw this bad boy back on. You know, it's that time. I'll take it off because I gotta promote our guy, Phil Foster. Shout out to Phil Foster Fitness, sponsoring Men of Order. Go to menoforder.com. You see the logo right up here. But I actually threw down a bet a while back when Duke lost. They lost to North Carolina late in the regular season, and then they lost to Virginia Tech in the let's see if you can I hear you now?
I think so.
Hey, there we go. There you go. All right, well, I'm going to give my breakdown real quick, and then I'm going to hand it over to you. So
okay.
Way back when Duke lost to North Carolina to close out the regular season and in Coach K's last game at Cameron Indoor, and they really got embarrassed. And then when they lost to Virginia Tech in the ACC tournament finals at Barclays, I immediately ran to the sportsbook and I put down $20 on Duke to win it all at I think it was like plus 1,200 because I was like, you know what? I do not see them doing their guy dirty like this. And if I have a conspiracy theory take, it is that they're gonna set it up to where not only is he gonna get to make a run and win the national championship, but he's gonna go through some of those schools that have had, and sure enough, he went through Tom Izzo in the second round. Then he went through Arkansas, who beat him in the national championship in '94. Now he gets to go against North Carolina again in the Final Four. And then wouldn't it be great, whether it's Villanova or Kansas, either one of those blue bloods, it sets up very well for a storybook ending to the career of one Coach Mike Krzyzewski.
It certainly does. It's like a fairy tale.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't know you had Duke, so I don't want to necessarily rain on the parade here. But
yeah, I don't have Duke. I actually in all of my official brackets, I picked either Gonzaga or Auburn to win. So that was more of like, I'm going to throw $20 at this, and if it pays off, it pays off, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. But it was just one of those, I can't not put money on Duke with that storybook retirement tour that Coach K is going on right now. I had to at least have a little piece of it. That's all that was.
And I agree with it. How do I say this? Because you're a good friend of mine. I
know you like Villanova, and I do too. I like Colin Gillespie. I like the way that they play. They're not as super guard heavy as they normally are, but they still have those quality guards who can handle you out of the building and can bang from three.
And that's very true. I think that's where we can start here with the first matchup. I see Villanova winning this first game over Kansas. I was on the Wager Talk Today show at noon, and we were talking about that. And what I didn't mention on that show because of time was that if you agree and you want to play 6-1, 5-1 on the Villanova Wildcats to win the championship, you don't want to use the futures market to do that. You want to simply bet the money line right now at I don't remember what it is, Chad, but
Was it
it's
like
not 180 maybe
yeah.
for the Kansas game. And if they win, you take the 180 plus the 100 you put down. That's 280. You roll it right into the championship game, which I gotta think if it is against Duke,
It's going to be in that
Duke would
same
at least
range, I
six
would
and a
think.
half, right?
Yeah.
I think even more.
Yeah.
Like,
That's what I'm saying. It would be at least that plus 180. Yeah.
And there you have it. You make like 3 times, well, not 3 times, but you make like 2.5 times what you would make just doing $100 bet on the futures, and your risk is $100. And another way to do it is if you win that first game against Kansas, you basically net 180, obviously, so 280.
Right.
Take half of your 180, it's 90. Round it up to 100 is what I would do, and then you bet 200 on the championship game, and you doesn't matter then. You're technically playing with house money. You're going to win $80 no matter what.
Yeah.
So the key is obviously you, as brilliant as it sounds, Chad, you got to win. You got to win the first game.
Right.
Yes. But I have a question for you too.
So you're saying to go that route because the upfront cost isn't as much, and then you can if you do win it, you can still roll your winnings over, and only take part of it, so that you get to keep skimming some off you get to bank your stake, and then just play with the house money after that. Whereas if you go with the money line for the futures, you're actually if they don't win at all, if they lose to Kansas, you're done.
Right.
So. Yeah,
and if they win Kansas and then lose in the championship, that's the worst scenario.
Yeah, you still got your stake. You're still good.
Yeah, you're down 100, and whereas with the money line, you win the first game against Kansas, you lose against Duke, or I guess it could be North Carolina. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah, we'll get into that one in just a minute because I don't see. I actually think that. Everything that happened to Duke at the end, that's why I put that bet down, is because everything that happened to Duke at the end of the season suggests to me that there's no way Coach K is letting Hubert Davis beat him in this game. I just don't see it happening. Armando Bacot's a really good post player, but that Williams kid is a monster, and he's really started to flex his muscle and spread his wings in the tournament. Yep. So, and then they still have their perimeter guys, and it's that Banchero kid is he's a matchup nightmare, and they did a decent job of kind of, they didn't really like stop him, but they made it to where not really much of anybody else did anything in that last matchup where they embarrassed Duke at home in Coach K's last game. But I can see him actually like coming out and really also flexing his muscle a little bit. But anyway, go ahead and continue. I want to hear your take on that game.
Well, in the North Carolina game, you have 5 McDonald's All-Americans starting for Duke and a 6th one that's coming off the bench. So, the point of saying that is the St. Peter story was awesome. And basically from game 1, which was Notre Dame against Rutgers on St. Patrick's Day, I mean, how nice was that for the Irish? Double overtime win. If I had to name one game that was the most exciting, it might have been that. But that doesn't mean that I thought the rest of the tournament went downhill in terms of drama and excitement, because it didn't.
No. Well, even that St. Peter's Kentucky game went into overtime.
Yeah.
And Kentucky had a lead, and they should have put that game away, and they missed 4 straight free throws. So.
Well, that brings up another point here. Villanova is the best all-time free throw shooting team in the history of the NCAA at 83.2, I think it is. And last year, Oral Roberts was the record holder. They hit, I think, 82.8. And that's the reason they beat Ohio State last year down the stretch. They were fouling, and Oral Roberts didn't miss. And I think they made 11 in a row in the last minute and a half, and that's what won the game.
And Villanova is really hard to guard. So it's hard. They're hard to guard without fouling. And having that combination of that quickness on the perimeter and guys who can make plays in the paint makes it to where you've got to do a really careful job of guarding, not letting people get easy buckets, but also not fouling. And then if you do foul, you're in trouble, because they're going to go and they're going to knock them down.
especially with a team like Kansas. If they get down, say, 3 or more fouls in the late in the first or second half, and they have to, especially at the end of the game, obviously, if they have to foul them to get into the penalty,
right.
That's not going to be a good result. But Justin Moore is out. That's the sidekick of for Gillespie. Both those players were nursing injuries basically since January 1st. Justin Moore had that freak, accident where you see the Achilles blow out, and he's not going to
terrible
play.
to watch. Yeah,
it was very disappointing. But you know what? The line has not moved. You can say maybe moved a half point in favor of Kansas, but I think the reason that is, Chad, is on the 15-man roster that Villanova has, 8 of those players are guards. And this has been Villanova's design for as long as I can remember. With
been a 3-guard offense for forever.
And sometimes 4 and sometimes 5.
Right. I think that there was a year, I want to say it was like 12 or 13, one of those years. LSU was playing NC State, and I actually felt like we had a good chance of beating Villanova had we won our game. We were up like 13 or 14 with only a few minutes left, and one of the ultimate tank jobs ever. LSU let NC State come back and hit a buzzer beater, and we lost. And then, sure enough, NC State goes on and beats Villanova. But that was one of their weaker teams, and I think that was one of the years where they had it was basically a 4-guard offense. They were somewhat of a donut of a team. They didn't really have an interior presence, and that's why I actually thought that whoever got through that NC State LSU matchup that year was gonna go on. So, but it is, if they have those complementary pieces to gather some offensive rebounds, but mostly to clean the defensive glass, and also to just defend and not get eaten alive on the interior, then you don't have to rely so heavily on the perimeter shooting. And then your perimeter shooting, I actually think that accentuates your perimeter shooting. When you're not desperate, where you have to have it to win, it actually makes it more deadly, because now you've got to honor all this other stuff. So what does that do? That creates more perimeter opportunities, wide open shots, and they're going to knock them down.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly right, Chad. You're definitely going to see, if I'm right on Villanova, you're going to see them spread the floor with Kansas's defense. They're going to force McCormick to come out from the paint and just open up the lanes. And we've seen what Gillespie can do. When he turns on the quickness, I mean, it's like something you've never really seen. And, he is not one of those RSCI top 100 athletes that Villanova recruited. He basically was borderline a walk-on 4 years ago. And he's been the Big East Player of the Year 2 years in a row. And I can't even tell you the last time that a Big East player won 2 years in a row.
No,
you would think Patrick Ewing, but I don't know. Yeah. It certainly wasn't a guard.
No, right, for sure.
But the one guy I think people ought to watch in this matchup, because I like watching players and the player matchups, not necessarily watching where the ball goes, is this kid named Eric Dixon. He's going to get more playing time. He's a forward. He's 6'8". He's 260, and he's quick. And I think, if I had to give you an X factor, it is probably him. And then, of course, Caleb Daniels, the senior guard, 6'4", 210 out of Willow Grove, Pennsylvania. A lot of these kids do come out of Pennsylvania.
Naturally. I mean, it's Villanova.
Yeah. So. And, Philadelphia is known as historically as a basketball town. It was basketball and boxing. Always, with Joe Frazier and a whole bunch of other, boxing gyms is what lined Broad Street. That's why Rocky the movie was filmed in Philadelphia. But that aside, it really is loaded with high school talent at the basketball level that does rival the North Jerseys of the world, Elizabeth, New Jersey, which brings out so many stud athletes. And then you also have Texas, California. But nevertheless, I do think this team is dangerous, and Coach K has 1,201 wins, I believe, now all time. He's the GOAT. I'll say that now. But in this matchup of 4 coaches, I like what I see with Jay Wright, and I'm not flying with blinders on here. I'm not looking through. What's that called, Chad? The rose-colored petals or whatever the heck.
Rose-colored glasses. Yeah. I mean, if you look at his track record, though, like he's putting together quite the resume, and doing it, I would say, even in relative obscurity, because when people talk
True.
about the great programs in college basketball, when they talk about the great coaches in college basketball, I don't even know if his name really comes up that often, or if Villanova comes up that often. You're always going to hear about North Carolina, Duke, Kentucky. You're going to get Kansas. You're going to get, maybe Arizona. Well, Gonzaga, obviously, recently, because Mark Few has really done a good job in the last 25 years of steadily having one of the better programs in the country. But quietly, just kind of off the radar over there, is Villanova, who I would bet if you go back and run through tournament brackets over the last, 15 seasons or so, they're either a 1, 2, maybe a 3 or 4 seed damn near every year. And they're always in the Sweet 16, maybe even the Elite 8, and making routine trips to the Final Four. And then here we are. They're back in the Final Four. They won the famous national championship where they beat North Carolina on that buzzer beater. But then they also had the one back in, what was it, 82, 83? No, 81 or 82.
Yeah, it was Massimino.
81. Yeah, with Raleigh Massimino. Yeah, yep. Exactly. So 83 was NC State, and 82 was Georgetown. North Carolina over Georgetown. But yeah, so I think that it's funny that Villanova just gets overlooked. And I think some of that too is because of what's happened with the Big East, where the Big East went from this powerhouse conference into a bunch of those teams leaving and going to the ACC, some going to the Big Ten, and now it's like the Big East isn't even what it used to be anymore, and so it's kind of lost some of that shine, I guess, to a certain degree.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I lost you again. I don't hear you. The chat, do y'all hear John? Because I can't hear him. I don't know if it's just me or if it's. Do you hear me? Okay, you hear me. All right. Well, then it may not. It doesn't seem to be on my end, but it was like right when I kicked the table, so I don't know if y'all type a 1 in the chat if you can hear John, a 2 if you cannot. John, talk to me. Yeah, I don't hear you. While we're waiting for John's audio to come back, I don't know if you can do something, maybe unplug and plug back in, or check whatever you checked last time. Oh, that's a 2. All right, so they can't hear you either. I'm going to go through some of these chats here real quick. Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I got you, Vic. Yeah, you did have Duke, Kansas, and Villanova all in there. So, all right, I still see your green screen back there. Oh, there we go. All right, so now you're showing up. Let's see if that works. Talk to me. Nope, still no audio. Damn. Well, sometimes it's just how it is. The technology gremlins jump up and get us. But yeah, it was. I think I did 24 hours, Victor, in 2 days. I did the entire. I did all but like the last half of the late games, both days, Thursday and Friday. And I'm doing it again next year too. Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as my grandparents would say.
I like it.
Yeah, there you go. Hey,
I'm back.
He's back. All right. Salute from Raider Nation family, Robert Pena. I appreciate you, my man. Steph Colonel in the building. Timothy Free in the building. Appreciate you guys for coming in. And it's an 11-day. Okay, that's what is that tomorrow? Tomorrow's tomorrow's the 2nd. No, today's an 11-day. Tomorrow is a 12 or a 3 or whatever the hell. I don't know how y'all do this numerology stuff. You're gonna have to tell me, Victor. Anyway, all right. So let's move. So we talked enough about Villanova. I know you love Villanova. Let's really break down this Duke North Carolina matchup real quick before we have to exit, because and then we'll get into why you like who you like in the final. But let's just take care of that North Carolina Duke matchup. What do you see there, and how do you see does North Carolina come out and do what they did to Coach K at Cameron Indoor for that last game, or is Duke going to have revenge on their mind?
Well, the one concern I have with Duke is you're talking about very good athletes that are 18, 19, 20 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And, Coach K is the best coach for this situation because he knows that this is it. His players know it's it. But the players could put a little bit too much pressure and emphasis and focus on the fact that we got to do this for Coach K. We got to win one for the Gipper. And that's one concern I do have with Duke. But there's such a well-organized, focused team and extraordinarily well coached, not just with Coach K, but the entire staff is probably second to none.
Mm-hmm.
They probably get that possibility minimized.
Right.
But we'll see it right from the opening tip. If Duke looks a little stiff and those shots are coming up short, that's just as well as I do that any shot in the beginning of a game, especially with all this rest that is hitting off the front of the rim, that's nerves. There's no other explanation. They're too good at shooting the basketball to not be draining them. So that's something I'll watch. But then that also puts in my mind my plan for the total. The total in the game is 151. So the scoring, what I call scoring volatility, is going to be pretty high. There's a high probability that both North Carolina and Duke at some point during that first half will rip off 10-0 runs. Which
so you're saying like volatility in terms of teams will go through droughts and runs, and then there'll be a kind of like a converse drought and run for the other team, depending on the timing of the game until things kind of settle down.
Yeah, and that's the one scenario. The second scenario is that both teams are, let's say they in NCAA basketball, the high end is basically upwards of 6.5 points per minute.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see this and I'm able to do, just focus on one game, which the Final Four allows me to do, I'll actually track it on my spreadsheet what the rate of scoring is. So if I go 3 minutes at 6.5 points per minute, I'm going to be looking at betting the under in game. I did this last year with Rob Vino on a live show. It worked. I couldn't have worked out better. It was almost like we had seen the game before it happened. I say that humbly, but it was Creighton against Gonzaga. It was the highest total of the tournament. It was like 158. Drifted down to like 154, if I remember right, at the tip. And we were able to create a 32-point middle by just executing what I just said. The 10-point runs are more applicable and more profitable if you're doing it betting on the team. So if you like Duke and North Carolina comes storming out and they get out to a 15-4 lead, timeout is called, North Carolina's on a 10-0 run. What's wrong with Duke? The announcers are saying you want to bet Duke, and you're going to get a great price. You will undoubtedly get a good price. And then the opposite is true too. If Duke gets out to a roaring start and North Carolina looks like they're going to get blown off the court, there's always that chance that one team does get blown off, but in the Final Four, that doesn't happen very often unless it was like last year with a team like Houston who beat up on teams that were upset teams. They were double-digit seeds, and then all of a sudden they ran into Baylor and got smoked. And I don't even think that was Final Four. That was before the Final Four. That was Elite Eight. But that's the point. I think this is going to be, it's going to be Frazier Ali. One haymaker after another.
Yeah, so I wanted to say something about that because you mentioned Duke and nerves around this Coach K playing up to the legacy and the responsibility, I guess, that maybe they'll feel and the expectation that they can't let him down and all this other sort of stuff. Do you think that it helps that it's North Carolina and that you get to go just be pissed off and basically fighting your little brother for the whole game instead of if they were playing against a Gonzaga or somebody like that where it wouldn't be that backyard brawl sort of scenario?
I definitely think that helps. I don't know how you evaluate this, but I wonder how much of that loss at home. Of course, there's revenge now with Duke, but that's how much of that? Because you can get too pissed off.
You can.
We play sports. You can get too pissed off, and you just don't play well. But if you think about it, most of these kids are going to be on the floor, and I call them kids because that's relative to me. They know each other from probably the AAU days. I mean, how many times have these kids played against each other or been on the same team? So I don't know if there's going to be that that, I hate you attitude and I'm going to beat your butt into the ground type of thing. But
no, but a certain level of
Duke is gonna lose.
familiarity. Yeah, a familiarity and not wanting to lose to, like I just think that from the standpoint of if you try to look at it through the lens of the pressure of winning for Coach K in his last season and not letting it be you that lets it down or whatever, I think that being hyper focused on that takes a back seat to playing with all these people you're familiar with. That's all I'm
agree.
saying. Is that I think that the familiarity will actually help those nerves to a certain degree. Maybe not so much that it'll be like this vitriol or any kind of animus, but that they'll actually just be playing differently with a little more focus on the opponent and their own game rather than all this legacy talk and everything. They're going to get all the questions for sure. I mean, you're going to see it. They've been asked it all week, and it's going to continue. They've been asked that stuff this whole tournament. That's the one thing I would say too, is they've been listening to all this nonsense for the entire tournament, and they just keep coming out and they just keep getting it done and moving on, surviving and advancing. So I can see that playing a role, but I don't think it'll be a huge detriment to them. What is that? If Kansas, you pick the pool at work, 500. Okay, well I'll be rooting for you, Cassius Cam, but I get like 250 if Duke wins. So I'm rooting for myself on that one. But so let's take it to that. Who's going to win it all? I know I think you're thinking Villanova is going to win it all, but make your case for each team and why they would win.
Well, let's start with Kansas. The last 4 number 1 seeds have been the champion of the tournament. 11 of the last 15 have been number 1 seeds. You could also say statistically it's time for a change, and number 1s aren't going to win in this tournament. But that's the precedent. 4 in a row, number 1s. Kansas is the only number 1 left. They're a pedigree that's probably even a greater pedigree than Villanova. And, I don't know if it's better than Coach K or not, but I can tell you this. They've had, I believe, 6 coaches at Kansas University since 1888. The first one was this guy named John Naismith, the so-called inventor of the game.
Right.
He is the only Kansas coach in the history of the program to have a losing record. I love that stat. I just love that fact. Right? Yeah. It's amazing. It's like saying Cy Young sucked, and look at his record. He lost just about as many as he won.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think Bill Self, he's been there a long time now, and I'm sure he feels that it's time for him to get a championship. Mm-hmm. Villanova, like you said earlier, and they've been there, done that, and the experience that Jay Wright brings to the table. I also think the way they have won through the tournament, they won 50 to 40. They won a game in the tournament. They also scored 80 some in a win. So they have a coach that he can adjust on the fly.
Versatility, yeah.
Yeah, mm-hmm. I think better than any of the 4 coaches left.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that in the chat room they could.
Oh shit! Your mic went out again. Why did it go out again? I don't know what it is. Maybe it is just that it's an 11-day, Victor. The tech is just not our friend. Maybe it's more of an 11-day where John is than it is here in Louisiana. But I'm not sure what's going on. But no, I like the take, and I like Villanova a lot. I do think that the injury is gonna play a role, and I don't know. I still like Duke for my conspiracy theory reasons, but I can actually see North Carolina making a run at it too. They're actually playing a lot better now than they were at different points during the regular season. But you saw these little spurts of them playing great and then playing down to the level of their competition, and then playing back up to greater competition, then back down again. And as the tournament has unfolded, they've just kind of been consistent and just banging with people. And really, they had Baylor like smoked out of the gym until Bradley Manick elbowed that kid in the face and got thrown out of the game. Oh, you're back. Hey, all
I
right.
took the headset off, so as long as I'm not
Okay. It might be
echoing.
that. Yeah, it might just be the headset. But yeah. So all right. So go ahead and let's go through. So we got the Villanova and we got the Kansas breakdown. So let's go through North Carolina. Like, what do you see with like Love and Leaky Black, Baycott and Manic, like that? They got a little squad that started to make a name for themselves in this tournament. Whereas I think a lot of people were wondering, at least for the last month of the season, whether they were even going to make the tournament.
It's true. I think the win over Duke clearly in the conference final is what secured their berth, and the committee, not any fault of their own, made them an 8 seed. And at the time, that seemed like Notre Dame was questionable whether they were even going to in. They played pretty well. I think the one takeaway, Chad, that I have for this whole tournament is don't assume that because a conference is in a off year, as the big talking heads had said time and time again, with ACC is just nothing this year. That doesn't mean that the top tier in that circuit are not premier teams.
And conversely, if they say that the SEC is great, that doesn't mean anything either, because and I'm an SEC fan. Like I'm down here in Louisiana. Like I'm a big LSU fan, and I saw it and I bought into the hype too. And when it was all said and done and the dust had settled, the last hope was Arkansas, and that was it. And I mean they gave it a run, but they didn't have enough to knock off Duke. But yeah. Kentucky lost in the first round. Tennessee lost in the second round. LSU lost in the first round. I mean, it was Alabama lost in the first round to Notre Dame. So, hush, Mozart. Yeah, come on. The SEC is always trash. No. The SEC has had like two of the Final Four teams multiple years, like in the last decade. So I don't want to hear it. Anyway, go ahead. So continue with your because it's Duke, North Carolina. It's two ACC teams that are going head to head, and it's like you mentioned on the clip that you sent out yesterday. It's an all blue blood tournament at this point. And now Villanova is not one that you would typically put in that blue blood category, but over the last 20 years or so, and even if you go back into the 80s in the heyday of the Big East, they were still one of those teams at the top of it. They have established themselves as like that's one of the programs in basketball that like the elite kids go to, and that you can always expect to be making a run in the tournament. So having Villanova, Kansas, and then North Carolina, Duke, that's one of those, like, what is this, like the millionth time North Carolina and Duke have played each other? They play each other like 2 or 3 times every year. It's going to be a crazy matchup. So make the case for North Carolina and make a case for Duke how they could win.
Well, interesting to note that this shocked me too, that North Carolina and Duke are playing for the first time in the Final Four. That's pretty amazing right there.
Yeah.
But to your point, they've played each other so many times. They're 11 miles apart in terms of a distance between campuses. These 4 programs will account for the 17th national championship since 1982, when the Final Four was first played in New Orleans. So there again, you have the blue bloods of the blue bloods all assembled for Coach K, and that's the conspiracy theory is in effect, because how in the world did this all happen with these 4 teams?
So 17 national championships out of 40 have come from these 4 schools.
It will be the 17th. So this is the 40th one. So they've accounted for.
This will be the 17th. Okay, I got you. So it's 16 up to this point. Yeah, but it's guaranteed to be 17.
One of them is going to win.
One of them's going to win. Yeah, so it's guaranteed to be a 17th. Okay, wow, that's insane.
So, the North Carolina situation is that they will play loose and free. They have nothing to lose. They're supposed to lose. It's Coach K and six McDonald All-Americans coming at you. We're supposed to lose.
Right.
And
Armando Baycott's played with a chip on his shoulder too. Like I've seen, like the way he's been playing, he's like. He's going to be a load to deal with.
Yes, no doubt. So, what I'm interested in most is just seeing how the game goes. I have a 5%er in this North Carolina Duke game going, to the clients. What the hell? For the purposes of the show, the 5%er is on North Carolina.
Okay.
For 5%ers, that's the max bet. Sports Memo also encourages us to do a max of 2 a month of 10 unit, which I call
Oh wow.
5% 10 unit max bets, because I don't like that jump 5 to 10.
Right.
I like 3, 4, 5. That's what pros do, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what you do. And you just keep doing it over and over again. You rinse and repeat week after week, and lo and behold, you have a profit.
Yeah. What's your saying? Your favorite saying is bet with your head, but not over it.
And they all the way
like, you throw too much, no matter how good you feel about a pick. If you put too much money on it, it will feel worse than it's ever felt before.
And I'm sure you've had this experience where you look at a game, you study it for hours, and you run the models, you run the math, and you're like, oh my God, this is going to be a blowout. This is going to be an absolute blowout. And after doing this for 27 years, it probably started maybe 17 years ago, where I would feel that bullish on a bet that, this is a monster bet, and it would lose. And I'd be like, what the shit? Like, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
So whenever I get really I get my mindset thinking that, oh my God. And I had a 5%er in the NBA this past week, which is a great example, where I had the direct opposite feeling. It was the Miami Heat in Boston, 4.5 point underdog. My models are screaming, buy the Miami Heat. I kind of reluctantly put it out because I thought, holy cow, man, is Miami really going to go in there and take down Boston? Boston has the best record in the second half in the Eastern Conference by far, second only in the NBA to the Phoenix Suns. And I'm telling people to put their hard-earned money on the Miami Heat. Well, fortunately, it worked out. But you understand the psychology, which has always been fascinating to me with sports betting, and also the trading
stocks.
market.
I was going to say stock trading. It's the same way. You don't see your blind spot. That's why it's a blind spot. And then later on, that blind spot will haunt you and will make you think you have a blind spot when you don't have one. and it's just like
exactly right.
you end up playing this game with yourself in your head where it's like, okay, this looks like a sure thing. So what am I missing? And then you go looking for what you're missing, and then you start talking yourself out of it and finding reasons to talk yourself out of it. And then it was the right bet all along. Or you do the opposite where you're like, oh no, there's no way this loses. It's a sure thing. And then that's when you get your ass handed to you. So that's why I like your approach of just like, no, what you do is you just put one foot in front of the other and you just keep doing, you just rinse and repeat, and you don't get too far ahead of yourself, and you just take little bite-sized pieces, and you just take little bite-sized wins as you go. And that way all of your losses are bite-sized too. But if you win enough more than you lose, then you come out ahead in the long run, and you don't try to take it all in one fell swoop, because you're going to lose it all in one fell swoop.
Yeah, and you're obviously not stressed out. If I told friends of mine, like, why do you tell me you just broke your TV by throwing a bottle in the TV? I mean, what the hell is wrong with you? That's a sign that you're betting too much money.
Yeah.
I mean, we all get pissed off at a team, but I get a kick out of the guys. I have friends in Philadelphia that are Eagle fans, and man alive, if they would bet a game against the Dallas Cowboys and the Cowboys would win against the spread, what I would hear for the next week is, I'm never betting those SOBs ever again. They screwed me. They're out to get me. And it's just such nonsense. It's just so funny.
You ever see Silver Linings Playbook with Bradley Cooper and Robert De Niro?
I have not.
That's a really good. It's a good. I mean, it's kind of it's a little bit of a romantic comedy of sorts, but it's also got there's some very heavy. They live in Philadelphia. They're big Eagles fans, and like Robert De Niro is like running a book, and he's got a bookie too that like they're at odds with each other, and they're like he's kind of in the hole to him, and he's got to like try to dig his way out and everything. Anyway, and it's there's a lot of stuff where superstition and like it's from back in like I think 2012 or 13. So it's like there's still talk about the Deshaun Jackson dropping the ball at the goal line,
there you go,
and all that sort of stuff. It's really funny. It's a really funny movie, and there's a lot of. But anyway, like what you were talking about right there is that it's a combination of betting against the Cowboys and betting or against the Giants and betting for the Eagles. That all kind of comes into play. And I feel that too, like as an LSU fan and as a Cubs fan, like it's either the Cubs or whoever's playing the Cardinals. And with LSU, it's LSU or whoever's playing Alabama. And so like, yeah, you get that emotional roller coaster is real.
I'm very prone to games that are going against Alabama. And because of the way my models are set, the public is going to inflate a team like Alabama far more times over the course of 12 games in a regular season than they're not. You rarely find Alabama undervalued, ever.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly, when I do have plays, it's against them. So a lot of times I get my face ripped off. But like you said, it's one play, move on, and when I think once people, especially new bettors that might be listening to this, once you get into that groove, it might be boring as hell the first couple of weeks. You start out with your bankroll of $1,000, and 2 weeks later you've grinded your way to a bankroll of $980. But you know what I mean? Like you lose $20 over 2 weeks. You're going like, this is ridiculous.
Right.
If you believe in what you're doing and you know that your research is going to pay off in the long run, you just keep grinding away. And I've had,
and you learn a little bit along the way too.
That's
and
exactly
you kind of
right.
tweak the model as you go, and
intuition.
But you don't let yourself get ahead of yourself. Tim brings up a good point. He says the system cuts out the emotional aspect, and that's
Absolutely.
right. If the more you just stick to the process, trust the process, as the Philadelphia 76ers would tell us, then it's going to work out in the end. The key is just making sure that you're keeping your model sound, and you're not letting emotion get in the way, but then also not ignoring new data as it comes in, because there could be something that presents itself that says, oh, you know what, like all of a sudden, I don't know what, Saban's lost it. Maybe the public is starting to sour on Alabama, and then maybe now they look more attractive. So yeah, it's just reading that stuff and seeing where the advantage lies. All right, well, so make the case for Duke, and then I'll let you go. We'll wrap it up and head on out of here. But what do you think? Aside from just Coach K has to win because the Stars will not allow anything else. What do you see the keys to them winning? Cutting down the nets.
Duke is going to have to do a really good job on the rebounding end, because North Carolina perennially is one of the best rebounding teams in the country. And Coach K, over his illustrious career, if there's a team that he struggles against, it's ones that out-rebound their opponents by 7 or more per game. And North Carolina is one of those types of teams. As you mentioned during the show, the cast is huge on Duke's roster. Again, I'll say it, 6 McDonald All-Americans. And you would think that those 6 by themselves could minimize the damage that North Carolina can put on the offensive glass. That's where I think the difference of the game is going to be seen. If North Carolina is getting one and dones and not getting those second chance scoring opportunities, Duke's going to win going away. If you see North Carolina all of a sudden getting 2 and 3 chances down the court, that's an uh-oh if you're a Duke fan. But with all the depth that Duke now has, and it's all come together. Beginning of the season, Duke fans were saying, what the hell is this?
Yeah. Well, same thing with Kentucky. Yeah. Kentucky was the same way early on. Now they flopped in the first round against St. Peter's, but they were playing really well in like February. Like they were playing their best basketball in January and February, whereas before they were kind of a hodgepodge. And it was that same thing where you have all this talent, and getting it to mesh and gel together is sometimes difficult. Yeah, I think the biggest thing is for Coach K is just you got to have somebody mark up Bacot every time a ball goes up in the air. You can't get caught ball watching, and that's what I saw. Who did North Carolina play in their matchup to get to the Final Four in their Elite Eight matchup? I don't remember.
UCLA.
Yeah, they were. I don't know. It was against Baylor. It was before that. It was the Baylor game when Baylor had come all the way back from that 25-point deficit, tied the game, sent it into overtime, and then I watched them. There were a couple of times where the ball went up, and everybody for Baylor is just doing this, watching it, and then here comes Armando Bacot slipping in when nobody's putting a body on him, and he's getting that putback, and he's getting fouled, and he's going to the free throw line now, That's the thing, especially him. But I mean, he's not alone. They've got some other bangers in there. Even the Manic kid, like even though he's more of like a stretch, stretch 4, stretch 5, he can still go in there and rebound. He's got length. So while he's mostly a perimeter shooter and like he does a little bit with his back to the basket, but it's mostly from that intermediate range. He can rebound as well. And that's, to your point, they're offensive glass, especially. Like it's one thing if you get out rebounded, but it's mostly, you're not getting second chance points. If you can execute your offense, you can still do okay. But when you're giving up second chance points, that's a killer. That's a morale. It's a morale drainer. Everything. It defeats you because you make a good stop. You have a great defensive possession, and then they get the rebound, and then you foul the guy, and it's an and one, and now you know what I mean. It's very deflating. So
that's a great scenario you just outlined. It really is, especially if Duke is giving up those second chance scoring. The offensive rebound with 5 or fewer seconds left on the clock. That's physically and mentally draining because now you got to reset your clock and go through the same intense defensive effort that you just did that was successful, but now you got to do it 2 times in a row.
Yeah. Reminds me of, look, I'm going to dip into my Cubs PTSD here for a minute. It reminds me of Mark Pryor on the mound in the NLCS in 2003, and he's just grinding. It's a 3-0 game, I think, in the eighth inning. He's got 2 outs in the 8th inning, or no, it was 1 out. There's 1 out in the 8th inning, so he's 5 outs away from winning, putting the Cubs in the World Series and pitching a shutout. Exactly, and he throws this pitch, and Luis Castillo pops it up. I think it was Luis Castillo pops it up, and here Moises Alou goes over and tries to catch it in the stands, and Steve Bartman's there, and so then I'm imagining Pryor, and he's like, "Damn, man! Like I just made the pitch to get out of this inning, and now I got to make it again." So he makes it again, and then I think they either walked him or he got a hit, but then the next guy up hits a ground ball right to the shortstop, and Alex Gonzalez kicks it instead of turning the double play. Now, I don't know if it's guaranteed that it would have been a double play, but at least you're going to get an out. And it probably would have been a double play. At least you get an out at that point. And then you're Pryor, and you're like, damn, man, I've thrown 120 pitches, and I just gutted it out and threw my get out of this jam pitch like multiple times. How many times do I have to do this? So, yeah, it's like it can be like that. Like you check a guy up, and you force him into a bad shot, fading away with 3 seconds left on the shot clock, and then they get the rebound, and they start all over again. You got to D him up again, and you're already down by 4, and you're trying. You've tried to come back anyway. It's just it's very deflating. So all right, so
of Bill Buckner because there's 3 errors before that play.
Wild pitches, everything. Yeah, yep.
Everybody remembers the last thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
And your Moses Malou guy, with all due respect to him, I always remember him, if he wouldn't have carried on so emphatically, because I don't think he could have caught the ball no matter what.
Yeah, it was going to be tough, but he was like that. And then the other thing was Dusty Baker was terrible in the dugout because he was doing the same thing. I'm like, Brett, you're supposed to be the guy who like calms everybody down. And then the fact that they didn't send anybody out there to talk to Pryor. They waited.
Yep.
And they wait. And by the time Larry Rothschild went out there to talk to Mark Pryor, it was way too late. So, it's crazy. I'm getting into my Cubs bag because opening day is next week.
It is.
Matter of fact, as soon as we get off here, I'm starting up. I got another channel where I have a whole Cubs deal that I do. It's called Wrigleyville South, and so I'm going to do that right after this by myself. But I got to change clothes. I got to put my Cubs jersey on and all that shit. But but no. So let's. All right. So gun to your head. Who's winning the whole thing? Who's cutting the nets down on Monday night?
I'm taking Villanova money line against Kansas. I'm taking Villanova again in the championship on the money line.
On the money line. All right. So is that more of you just like the money odds than that you really, really think that Villanova is going to take it, or you feel like they've really undervalued Villanova completely and that they're the favorite?
Both.
Okay.
I think they have the ingredients to pull it off. I mean, everybody's going to think it's an upset. And to a degree, it is going to be. But I put a lot of weight in Jay Wright and being able to adjust on the fly and make the right moves with his chest moves. I think that will be the interesting part to see how they do. If they get blown out by Kansas, then hey, Kansas is a better team. But I think if they, I see Duke and North Carolina in the final. That's my personal pick.
You mean Duke and Villanova? Duke and Villanova. Yeah. You said Duke and North Carolina, but yeah, you meant Duke. Yeah, Villanova. Yeah. Oh, you see Villanova in North Carolina?
Yeah.
Or Duke and North Carolina. I mean Duke and Villanova.
I actually have North Carolina. That is my 5% bet that I have out for sale now. So I give it out to everybody. But use your head. This is not, 8%. That means I lose 32% of these plays. There's a 32% loser I just gave to you on the show.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I used to play this game. That's kind of like Dungeons and Dragons, not quite, but it was a dice game where you rolled 2 6-sided dice, and it's like, all right, so sometimes you had to just roll 1, and you needed to roll a 1 through 4 to get whatever or no, it was a 3 through 6. So as long as you didn't roll a 1 or a 2, you were good. I'm like, yeah, but there's a 33% chance that you're going to roll a 1 or a 2. It's not like it's unbeatable, like there's
people don't think that way.
Even if you only have to roll a 1, it's still a 17% chance that you're going to get it wrong, that it's not going to end up in your favor, and you can't get mad when the dice do that. So like, yeah, you're to your point, like you got a 70% winner, it's a 30% loser.
That's right.
So well, all right, so then let's one more quick thing. All right, so you see Villanova, North Carolina in the final, and you see Villanova taking it. What have you looked at it? What's the money look like on that specific scenario? Because I know they had this for the Super Bowl. I haven't looked to see if they had this, but it was like you could specifically say Cincinnati Bengals over San Francisco 49ers. I took Ant's little gematria conspiracy theory play all the way to the nth degree, and I played it. It didn't work out that way, but yeah. So what does it look like? What are going into the Final Four? Villanova over North Carolina. What are the odds on that?
I'm pulling up MGM right now. Let's see what we got here.
Because that might be a good, throw $10 on that. Hell, you might walk away with a rack.
Yeah, and that's what I'll do before the tip tomorrow. I'll wait till and again with pizza money. Pizza money is $10 to $20.
Yeah, right.
Not 1,000.
No, that's why my pick to a few weeks ago when I picked Duke before the tournament started, I threw down $20 and I'll win $260 if they win it all. So it's all good.
Now here we got let's see.
So I'm tempted to just go look it up and see.
So we got Villanova to beat North Carolina 11-1.
Wait, Villanova to beat North Carolina is how much? Is what?
11-1 plus 11.
That's plus 1,100. Okay, so that's not bad. So $10 would win you 110. Well, you get 120 back when you get your $10 back too. Okay.
Yep. So you'd have if you pay $10 at your local pizzeria for a pizza on Friday nights, you'd have 11 of them. Right. That would happen.
You get to feed all sorts of Ninja Turtles. All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Good to know. And I will. I'm actually going to look at that because that's if I were to play any kind of counter bet to my Duke bet, it would be something like that, where it's like, all right, look, worst case scenario, I've got like this. It's $30, 20 for Duke, and then 10 for this other thing, and I'm either going to win $120 or I'm going to win $260, but the worst case scenario is I'll lose $30. If neither of those scenarios happens, I'll be all right with that.
Yeah, and I'll be totally honest with you here, Chad. The two dogs winning in the Final Four is very rare. Favorites are 17, 14, and 1 against the spread over the last 16 tournaments. And the last team to lose as a favorite was Duke back in when was it? I can't remember the date. 2019, it might have been against Michigan State.
Okay.
So favorites usually don't lose, but again, favorites aren't usually favored by just 4.5 here in the Final Four. It's usually more. So it's extraordinarily rare, but it's not that rare that you get 11-1 if Villanova pulls it off. That's
right.
That's very cheap. That's where the value is, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, they're like plus 600 to win it all, period. Like regardless of opponent. Yeah.
Yep. Let me I can tell you that too real quick.
So if you use North Carolina as the opponent, though, it doubles those odds. That's pretty solid.
Yeah, Villanova is plus 500 right now. It's coming
plus
down
500. Okay,
and,
so it's
North
even
Carolina
more than double.
75, and
Okay.
both Duke and Kansas are plus 160.
Okay. Wow, plus 160. That's so that's very tempting to not want to take Duke or Kansas. You know what I mean? Like it's like not enough money.
But Chad, and I know you have to get going, but this is where I try to teach with the new bettors. Okay, Kansas is favored by 4.5, right? They're plus 160. Maybe you'll get 180 somewhere else. But there's no reason to bet plus 160 or plus 180 on Kansas to win it all. You play this game in game with Kansas, and you try to get a line at Pick'em. If you can get the line at Pick'em in game, which is probably 80% likely to happen,
then you roll that money into the final.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's
because plus 160 with 2 games to win against 2 very tough opponents is not really good odds. It's very bad odds, actually.
That is
now it's very likely that that's what's going to happen. That it's going to be Duke, Kansas in the final because the favorites should win both of those games, but they've purposefully made the lines this I don't know, they're unattractive, I'll say,
right,
because they don't want people, because if they were more attractive than this, then the money would be overloaded to the side of the favorites, and you don't want that if you're bookmaking. You don't want people to have the most likely scenario make them a shit ton of money. you want it to be something that they have to really, really dig into their wallet for. So I get it. Yeah. And you're right. That's probably the play. And I like the scenario you put together when we were talking at the very beginning, where you take Villanova money line game 1. Then if they win, you bank your stake, and then you just roll over your house money and bet the money line for them to win the final on Monday. That's a great way to play your money and not overextend yourself and still end up winning the same amount when it's all said and done, or maybe a little bit more.
It works with dogs in the tournament. That's when I come up.
For sure.
I use it because you could do the same thing with the Tar Heels. If you're a Tar Heel fan and you think that they're going to beat Duke and win the whole thing, you want to do the same thing that I just outlined for Villanova on North Carolina.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, take the money line game 1, roll it over game 2. Yeah. Yeah, because then you get to bank some of that money, because you could, instead of putting this big amount of money on them winning the whole thing, you put half that on them winning game 1, and then if they win game 1, then you put the other half on game 2, and you keep the rest of the money off to the side. But if you don't lose, you only lost half your money instead of all of it. So yeah,
you don't go broke taking a profit.
Right, exactly. No, that's for sure. It's hard to do. It's very, very hard to do. You can't make that up on volume. All right, well, John, I appreciate you very much for coming on, and
always a pleasure.
Yeah, and as always, I don't know, may the odds be ever in your favor, all that good stuff. And I'll let you give your catchphrase as we head on out.
Well, it's bet with your head and not over it, and I'm dead serious in saying that. I can't emphasize that enough. Yeah, I do one thing on the face of the earth the rest of my life to teach people not to get carried away and go for it. Your wife's still going to love you. Your girlfriend's still going to love you. Your dog's still going to love you. But you're not going to love yourself if you bet $5,000 and then you have to reveal that you just screwed up. So enough preaching here in the pulpit. And the other thing is, may all the wins be yours.
That's it. May all the wins be yours. I was like, it's not that may the odds be ever in your favor, but it's something like that. There it is. May all the wins be yours. And with that, we say farewell. Y'all enjoy the Final Four this weekend. Peace, everybody. I got next out of here.